I don't think that any of us thought it would be just where you're going through these long stretches of not winning.
There'd be a win here, a win there, maybe 3, 4, 5 game losing streak, and then a
Right.
random win here. But no, we went 0-14 for the entire month. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Chocolate City Hoops podcast. I'm your host, DJ. Today, we got a great one lined up for you, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. So, let me tell y'all, we have a great guest lined up today. She is the CEO and founder of Double Take Sports, Carita Parks.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So look, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The Wizards haven't done so well this month. In fact, really bad.
It's an understatement.
Yeah, that's really an understatement. Let me stop tripping for y'all. It's been really, really bad.
Yeah.
Right. So 0-14, not so good. There's been some trade rumors circling around, right? And then we're gonna get into your trivia question, right? But first and foremost, Rita, let's get to know you a little bit, right? So, CEO and founder of Double Take Sports. Let us in on that. How'd that come to be?
Yeah, my journey in sports was a winding road. Some people know this, some people don't, but my background's in public relations. So that's how I kind of got started. When I was younger, I had aspirations of doing sports journalism and broadcasting, but reality set in as far as adulthood. And I was like, I don't know if the coins is going to work over there. So I pivoted over to PR, but I still always had a passion for sports. So when I moved here, I was more into an entrepreneurial mindset. And I moved here from Florida, by the way. So I got into more of an entrepreneurial mindset and I started a PR company, Parts PR. And I was like, I'm going to focus on sports with that. So I worked with like Penny Hardaway on his radio show, and I worked with some small businesses, and just Donovan Darius, who used to play for the Jaguars, worked with his foundation. So that was kind of where I was at that particular time. And then I ran into a woman who had her own sports media company. And I was doing some PR for her. And once that was over, I was like, this is kind of a good opportunity for me to get back into the journalism aspect of things. Yeah. So I started working with her, and she knew, since she did PR with me, she knew what I was capable of. And there's a lot of synergy between PR and journalism that people might not always realize. So to make a long story short, I started doing more writing, more on the writing side through her company. And I got into doing Super Bowl, the NFL draft. And so I started kind of big. Yeah. And then I was like, DC has so much to offer from a sports perspective. I was like, I need to start getting plugged into the sports scene here. So I worked with another independent company. Shout out to the independent companies, because they gave me my start. And that's how I started covering the Wizards. Yeah. And then from there, I covered the Washington football team. And then COVID hit. And so during that process, I was just thinking, how do I want to expand my business, expand my career? And that's when I decided, I feel pretty capable of starting my own sports media company. I started my own PR company, and I really felt like I had built good relationships and that I could do it. And so in 2020, I worked with a website guy that I've known for a while. He did my PR company website. And I was like, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. And so we started Double Take Sports, which is a mix of multimedia. So writing, video. And then I transitioned my Wizards coverage. They were so gracious to let me transition over to Double Take Sports. I started covering the Mystics, transitioned that coverage to Double Take Sports. I've done some NFL through Double Take Sports, and it just kind of went from there. NBA draft, NBA Summer League, WNBA draft, all of that through Double Take Sports. And so that's one aspect of it. But then the other part of it was I wanted to start a platform because it's so hard to get into this field.
Right. Exactly.
And my way was non-traditional. So some people don't have that. I'm going to work for ESPN or work for a local sports company. It's just not always going to work for everybody.
Right.
And so that was another reason why I started Double Take Sports. And so here we are.
And look, like, let's not sugarcoat it, right? Let's go ahead and give you your flowers because look,
Thank you.
it's not easy for everybody. And I want to touch on that because I definitely believe that's really important. And on Chocolate City Hoops, and myself personally, my producers, right?
Yeah.
We firmly believe in really giving people their flowers. We love giving
Thank
our
you.
guests flowers when they come on here. So let's go ahead and give you, your flowers, right? Let's
I'll
clap it up.
take it.
Absolutely, right? Because it's not easy,
No.
right? Some
It's a
opportunities
grind.
you have to network and you have to sometimes even get lucky. But let's be real, sometimes
Yeah.
you just have to will that thing into existence.
It's a combination of all of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and I don't know if people sometimes see the glamorous side of it. You're talking to the athletes, and that's the great part of this. But it is a grind. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment.
Yep. And that's it, right? Even for this podcast, for those that don't know, right? I struggled a long time with really gaining that confidence of I love talking about the Wizards.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have an outlet. I'd be on Wizards Twitter. I'd follow, some of the more, people that like yourself or Damo or Matt Moderno or, shout out to Greg who's recently got started, right? It's these people that you see them, they just talk and have fun about Wizards and they do their podcast. And I was like, well, really, it wasn't even just me, but I have a lot of friends that are encouraging me to like, why don't you do that? And sometimes you just need that. And here I am today, right? My producer just reminded me that this is the 6th episode. So
congratulations
as y'all know,
to you.
Thank you. As you all know, we do an episode once a month. So 6 months worth of hard work and coverage and everything that it takes to put the production together. So, hey, shout out to my producer. You guys don't see him, but I promise you he does an amazing job. So shout out to him. One of the things that I'm actually curious, right? So now I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. So now, look, I know you've talked to, you've been inside the Wizards organization, right? You're part of the press, right?
Right.
So, what about a story of my favorite player? I mean, I've seen you talk to John Wall before. Is there anything in particular, like a John Wall story, anything that might come to mind?
I feel like when I think about John Wall, he is so misunderstood to me because, as I mentioned, I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. So we don't have the closest basketball team to us is the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, which is great. But so that's kind of what my focus was on growing up.
Yeah.
So moving here, before I got into being a part of the press with the Wizards, you kind of get this story and this image of John Wall. And you know what that story and image was. And for me, he was one of my favorite athletes to cover. I always felt you can ask John Wall a question, he's going to give you a real answer. And I never felt like he gave you answers that were inauthentic. He just always came across authentic to me. I love what he does or did in the Washington, D.C. community. That was a huge part of him as an athlete here. And I covered those events. He had a back to school event that he would do. He also had a turkey event that he would do every Thanksgiving. And I do remember right when the trade rumors came out, he still committed to his community event, which was Thanksgiving. I went to that event and I was like, man, you could just tell. It was like, oh, those rumors are true. I was like, I think he's really going to get traded. Just the vibe. It was just the vibe. But he was still in good spirits when it came to his event. But we had a media portion of that event. And just like with the questions and the answers, you could just kind of tell he was a little bit melancholy. So I was like, yeah, I think that those rumors are true. But what stands out to me is that line was wrapped down the street. Like the community loved John Wall and he loved the community. And so those are the things for me that stood out about John Wall. And I think it's important to tell that story because even when he came back, when he was after being traded with Houston, he came back. You know, that game where he was like, this is still my city. And I asked him, I forget the specific question I asked him, but he left the door open of still coming back to DC. He was like, you never know. And so he really did love this city. And it wasn't fake. You know, if he could have played his whole career here, I feel like he would have. And those are just a couple of my John Wall nuggets.
Man, it's a sore spot. And look, you share the same sentiment as really at least I believe the majority of the Wizards community.
Mhm.
And right, I do remember seeing on TV that moment where he is at his community event. I believe during
Yeah.
that time, and the lines are wrapped, and you just hear people walking up to him. It's like, John, don't leave.
They
John,
did.
don't
You're
leave.
so right.
And then John, like, what can he do?
do?
What can he say?
And I feel like that's why he was kind of melancholy, because I
Yeah.
think he knew the writing was on the wall. And I just feel like it was like a moment of reflection for him, probably like looking around and like you said, people were like, don't go, John.
Yeah.
And, you know, it hadn't been announced officially yet.
Mhm.
And yeah, that is my last memory of John Wall. Can you imagine that though? Like a player who gets traded and the last memory you have of him is him giving back to the community.
That's wild, because I mean, how many players can you say
That's
that
what I
actually do
mean.
that? But that's the reason why he's so beloved in the city. And you know, again, maybe I'm being biased, but I don't know another DC sports figure who's as beloved or even close to John Wall. I'm sure there's somebody out there.
There probably is. I can't think of him off the top of my head, but
look, right. But in my mind, from basketball standpoint, like it's John Wall, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the reason why homie's jersey is sitting right here. Hopefully one of these days, if John ever sees this, we'd love to have you in the seat, man, because we would love to tell your story. But yeah, no, it still to this day it's tough to talk about. You know, the organization did it in a weird.
That was a tough trade.
Yeah, that was a weird way. But man, I tell you, it was Ed Oliver for the very first show when he came on. Man, we talked about it, and it was just like when he came back, not yet for Houston, and also when he was finally on the Clippers, because Houston, it was still COVID, and then Clippers was post, and then he just same thing. That's when you heard the whole crowd. Like I've never seen. I mean, usually in DC, you know, for the arena, most of the time it's the opposite team that fills up the city, but everybody was there. No,
they were there for John Wall. And when he did that, This My City, the crowd erupted. Like they loved that. And he deserved that, to be honest. Just the way the trade happened, you know, most players get traded, they don't have an opportunity to say goodbye, but you know, and even when he came, he was very emotional before the game, because I was out like on the court. He was just like quiet, and he said in his post-game press conference that, you know, it was just weird being here in another uniform. He said like his mom had passed too. Yeah. So like being here kind of reminded him of his mom. He's like, you know, I know where she used to sit in the stands. So there was a lot of emotions for him that game.
You know what? We might have to get you back and just do a
John Wall
episode. Just talk about John, because we could talk about.
I know, because I feel like we could go on forever on that one. We could talk about
John for an entire episode, and who knows? Maybe if we can ever get John here, we could talk to him together and be like, how did you feel about that? But okay, so let's transition before I start shedding tears about John here, man. Let's transition to the current state of the Wizards, which has not been good. Look, I mean, I don't know how much we can really talk about this, guys. The Wizards went 0-14 in the month of November, literally winless November. Now, right, to tee it off, we know by design the Wizards weren't supposed to be good this season, but I mean, I didn't expect them to be this bad.
No, I mean, if we think about last season, they weren't that good last season either, right? But there were some wins sprinkled here and there. And, you know, they still ended with not the best record at all. But I feel like that it was still tough, but that's the kind of season I think fans can get through. But, I mean, and even for the players, like we're talking about the fans, I mean, it's hard to just keep going out there and not winning. Yeah. But no, I mean, we knew the Wizards weren't going to be good, and like you said, that's by design. They're rebuilding, and the front office set the expectation that this is going to be a long road. But I don't think that any of us thought it would be just where you're going through these long stretches of not winning.
No, these are extremely, you know, again, like you said, like I like the word you sprinkled in there, right? Like, yeah, there'd be a win here, a win there, you know, maybe 3, 4, 5 game losing streak, then a random win here. But no, we went 0-14 for the entire month. And you know, I want to be very clear when I say this too, because, and you know, shout out to State of the Wizards. I was on their podcast the other day. rebuilding can be tough.
Yeah.
And you expect to lose. Like, we knew, all of us Wizards fans knew that it was going to be a rebuilding year this year, right? But what I personally wanted to see was some sort of consistency from the young boys.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, again, rookies are rookies. You expect them to lose, but you want to see, you know, good games, some consistency built in, right? Maybe 1 or 2 games where you play well, and then, you know, you maybe hit that rookie wall. But,
Right.
you know, we haven't really seen some of the young boys, you know, play that well. And what's plagued the Wizards more, at least from the offensive side, has definitely been turnovers and the lack of defense. And, you know, Coach, you know, Brian Keefe, you know, what are his 2 things that he was preaching? Growth and defense, right?
Yes.
So I know you were recently at the Mavericks game. I mean, maybe you could share some of the things that you saw during that game, or maybe some of the conversations that you had.
I mean, it is. So one thing that also stands out to me from an offensive perspective is like they're struggling even to get like over 100 points. Like they have, but it's been like barely.
Yeah.
So I mean, the offensive efficiency just has been tough, and then defense. I mean, they're getting blown out as well. So 20 plus points losses in November. So I mean, it's hard. It's to your point. Where is the growth and development happening and the inconsistency? And it's interesting that you mentioned the inconsistency because Daniel Gafford was back, right?
Yeah,
Former Wizards center. And I asked him after the game, you know, now that you're on a championship caliber team coming from the Wizards, because, you know, he was in this for a while.
Right.
You know, what do the Wizards need to do to get to the point of like similar culture of the Mavericks?
Yeah.
And something that he mentioned, he said a higher level of consistency. And he said, and you have to have like accountability amongst each other to push each other to get to that level. Now, I feel like there is accountability. I mean, nobody is happy with this performance. So there's accountability there. But the consistency, like you said, there's just been a lack of consistency, and now you add the injuries.
Yeah.
But I mean, Coach Keefe, he said that he is seeing some growth from his team. He is seeing some development. So he's finding the positives.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember exactly which game it was in November, but he was angry after that game.
I remember seeing that, yeah.
And
which I like.
I did like that.
I like that.
I like that. I like to see that, like, yeah, like, don't just sugarcoat all this.
Right.
Like, he was like, this is not our standard. Because it's like you're going to lose, but they have a certain standard that they're trying to get to. Right. And so I like seeing that from him. And I do believe, you know, they got a little better after that. But Kyle Kuzma also mentioned in November just a lack of, like when they're going against more physical teams, he feels like they have a lack of physicality and also defense. But the crazy thing about defense is I feel like every iteration of this Wizards team, we're always talking about the defense.
Yeah. Every single year. It's funny you mentioned that because you're right. Every single year, no matter what coach it is. I think the last time that I remember this team being good on defense was like when Randy Whitman was the coach. I mean, that's 2 coaches ago. Like we're on Brian Keefe. But let me be absolutely clear though. I'm a fan of Brian Keefe for his past, from right, the growth from, you know, some of the other younger players he used, and then and let's not forget too, he's a rookie coach himself, right? This is his first year, you know, being a head coach. So there's going to be some growing pains with him as well. And I'm excited to really see, again, knowing his history and his track record, I am super excited to see what he's going to be able to do with some of the young boys coming up. And then obviously, again, right, the front office has already said, you know, they set that roadmap. This is a process, right? It's going to take
a multi-year issue.
They've been very specific in that wording, multi-year process, right? And you know, they're looking towards next year's draft, right, where you have Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, right? You got some of those kids, you know, coming out. And then they looking for them from the draft. I don't know who's in that draft, but you got kids in that draft too, right? Kids, they're probably in the look. I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at kids in middle school right now, just coming up the ranks.
I mean, I wouldn't be. I will say this. I do like Will Dawkins, and I like what his vision. He's very clear and articulate about what his vision is for this team, which I think has lacked in the past.
Right.
Fans will be like, well, what is the vision for this team? What's the direction?
Right.
I do think that we can see the direction that this team is trying to go.
Yeah.
While there has been some inconsistencies with the rookies, I do believe his draft picks have been very promising.
Right.
And that's a good sign. So it's tough right now. Like you said, like it's they're just not winning. And it's kind of like, how do you keep them motivated? That was a question too. And Coach Keefe said, you know, we got a resilient group. And I do think that this is where the vets do come in, is you've got guys who've seen a little bit of everything, like Marvin Bagley. He got his first start.
Yeah.
And, you know, he said he's seen a lot in his career. He's been through a lot. So I do think that's where the veteran presence comes in on this team. But it's going to be tough. But I do think there's been transparency.
There has. And again, right, it's tough because you see an 0-14 month, right?
Yeah.
Winless November, but
and
then,
you didn't expect
you
you
didn't expect a winless month. But also at the same time, it's a rebuild and you hate to see it, but you just got to accept that this is
what it is.
This is what it is. And guess what? Like you said, Will Dawkins and that team, this is what they said it was going to be. Now, they didn't say, you know, we was going to lose a month. No one can predict that, but they did say, look, 3 to 4 to 5 year process to where we want to get to, And again, right, like you said, we see these young boys, we see these draft picks, we see these little flash in the pan moments where you've seen Alex Sarr, you've seen Bub Carrington, you've seen Keyshawn George, right, do some really good stuff, right? Even the year before, right, and even Bilal. What was our second round? Tristan Vukovic, right? Like, when's the last time we've seen a second round pick perform or do anything, even be on the team and wasn't stashed somewhere over here?
Right, exactly.
So you see stuff like that, and you're just like, you know what? We knew it wasn't going to be good last year or this year, right? In the next couple years, hopefully we'll have you back on the show and we're talking a different tune. Okay, so we're gonna briefly get into it, right? There were like a couple of trade rumors revolving Kyle Kuzma. I mean, there's always going to be every single year, right? I mean,
every year.
Ever since Kyle's been here, there's going to be some trade rumors with him. He hasn't really performed up to the level that he has in previous seasons. But nonetheless, they're still out there. I'm sure there's other going to be, Valanciunas, right? He's going to be in trade rumors. Just curious from your side of things, from the reporting side of things, anything that you might have heard or sprinklings there?
I haven't heard anything about, if a certain player is going to get traded, but I do think we all know anything's on the table.
Right.
And they were not shy last year before the trade deadline.
Sure.
I don't think they're going to be shy this year when the trade deadline approaches. So I really do think that everything is on the table. Do I know if Kyle Kuzma will get traded? For sure, I don't. But is it possible? Yeah, because it's a team that's rebuilding. I do think it's more possible than I felt it was the past 2 years that his name has come up in trade rumors. But anything's on the table. Anything. Jonas for sure. I mean, because with him, I really do feel like he was brought in to be like a temporary vet, someone these guys can learn from, a temporary piece. So I definitely see him being a possible trade piece.
Yeah, that was probably the most obvious. And I've never seen the Wizards community. So, anytime, some of the most exciting times as a Wizard fan, right? It's always, the draft, right? Where are we going to fall? Where are we going to land? And unfortunately, we get our hearts broken because we have the best chances to get in the top 3 and then we fall to 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
But this year, right, went in our favor, got the number 2 pick, so super excited.
And got 3 players in the first round.
3 players in the first round.
Let's give the Wizards front office their props for that, because
absolutely
making moves. I know they had to part ways with Denny, but it was for the best for Denny. I mean, he's in a better situation. I know that was hard, but he's in a better situation. But it gave him 3 picks in the first round, which from my recollection, I can't remember if it hasn't happened before, or if it was just one other time, but it's rare for
Right.
the Wizards.
Well, not even just that, but it's an aggressive front office,
Yes.
right? So I mean,
Yes.
we've had aggressive front offices during the trade line, right? But not during the draft. I mean, you would have thought the way that they were
True.
dealing picks that this was the NFL draft, right? Like you
That's
see,
true.
right? You'd have thought this
Listen.
was the NFL draft. There's only two rounds in the NBA draft, but you'd have thought there were 7 the way that they was wheeling and dealing some picks that night, and it just like. That's for us Wizards fans, right? That's kind of exciting.
Sign. Yeah.
So you see stuff like that, and you're like, you know what? It just feels good to have a front office that is transparent with their roadmap, where they want to go, and then is just super aggressive and like, hey, this might be a roadmap, but if we see an opportunity to get somebody we like, we go.
And I think that's the thing that everyone has to remember is it is tough right now, but they are making moves. They're willing to make moves. Like I said, with the trade deadline approaching, there's no telling what they will do with that. So they're willing to do what's necessary to bring in the pieces that they need to. And as you said, we're seeing the aggression. So they're not playing games with us. And I think that a lot of fans should be able to appreciate that. It's just knowing that, there is a vision. It might be a while, but there is a vision.
Wizards fans, we get it. It hurts. It really hurts. Nobody wants to see their team go 0-14. But look, listen to Carita. She said, look, it's going to happen. There's a roadmap. There's a vision. The front office has said it as well. Let's just.
And you can kind of see it. You can see it slowly coming to fruition. So I'm just trying to find the positives in this winless November.
And so speaking of positives, we're going to start winding down a little bit, and we're going to get into my selection for Wizards of the Month. And, we'll maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree. We'll find out here. But it was really a toss-up, right? And obviously it's really hard to find like anything good, like you said. But the positive is my Wizard of the Month is Jordan Poole. And let me explain why, right? And I said this on the State of the Wizards too. Jordan Poole, to me, has really grown as a leader.
Yeah.
And when we talk, and then also, right, we talked about consistency, right? I've seen more consistency from him this year than we did last year, right? Last year, JP, right, we had that kind of like that rumor swirling around about his leadership style and that, saying this is my team and things like that. And, right, we don't know that to be true. Again, rumors, right? But it floated around. And we saw him also kind of have some wild games, chucking up shots, and it's kind of like, JP, what you doing? Like, this ain't a pool party, right? Somebody's drowning right now. Like, this isn't good. But no, this year, man, it has been so, out of everybody I'm watching, right? Obviously outside of the rookies, I've had the most enjoyment watching him, right? Watching his leadership style and, getting the rookies and getting plays together, right? Commanding the offense and doing what he can, but still, he's like doing some of the stuff that we saw him do at Golden State, right? So I don't know, like going back to the leadership stuff too, right? We saw how he took Bilal under his wing.
Yes,
we saw
immediately,
and then we saw over the summer, right, him getting with Alex Sarr and saying like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and start working on some of this pick and roll stuff and getting you acclimated and building some chemistry there. So yeah, my Wizard of the Month is Jordan Poole. I love what he's been doing this month and really excited to see what he does for the rest of the year because especially now that he's more on ball and the primary ball handler, I've just been really happy with what I've seen.
I actually do like that pick because Jordan's come a long way from last season. He even came into this season just with a whole completely different demeanor. I think that he kind of had to get past the trade and how it happened, and nobody expects a trade, but I'm sure he did not. And then you're coming to a team that has a completely different dynamic. You're being asked to be in a position that you really didn't have to be in Golden when he was with Golden State. And if we talk about a constant, yes, he hasn't had every game hasn't been good, but if we talk about a constant though, Jordan Poole, he has been a constant, and his leadership, I would say, for the past few years, Kyle Kuzma has been like that leader. Right. But I feel like this season, Jordan Poole has taken a step ahead of Kyle Kuzma. And I feel like he's embraced it. Like he's kind of like, this is what I'm here for now. I'm going to be a leader on the court and off the court, and I'm going to mentor these rookies, which I think he actually told me that because I asked him about his leadership during media day. And, you know, he wants to teach them things that he learned in his career. And I like that about him. And like you said, I've seen good things from him as well this month. So I can get on board with that.
Look, anytime someone can agree with me with Wizards of the Month, I'm really happy. I'm 2 for 2. So that's a good thing. So especially in the month that we had. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up, guys. We're gonna go ahead and get to our trivia question, right?
Goodness.
So are you ready for this one?
I don't know.
Look, right? So this is where I have stumped many people, and I've had some questionable people now that I think then kind of cheated on something. We ain't gonna talk about who. You know who you are, man. Giving some same answers for the question. So, all right, trivia question. Simple, right?
Is it?
What year was the last time both the Washington Wizards and the Washington Mystics made the playoffs?
Ooh, both of them?
Both of them in the same year. What year?
Okay, so, oh, shoot.
Oh, I'm good. I'm getting good at this.
Okay, so the Mystics won their championship in 2019. I don't remember no, because the Wizards haven't been in the playoffs since I've been covering them. So I feel like, I don't know, was it 2018?
Yo, she got it. She got it.
Process of elimination.
She got it. 2018 was, okay. We really gonna have to get some flowers. And the reason why, because I really thought I had one, right? I'm gonna have to start coming
I'm
up with
excited about that. I didn't think I was gonna get your trivia question.
Look.
And I didn't know what it was. We didn't talk about it.
Hey, look, we sure didn't. And the fact that you got it and some others been struggling on some of the easier questions, that says something. But either way, you got it. So congratulations. You got the trivia question. I guess I should really be happy, but to be honest, I'm like, man, I need to come up with some type of questions. So anyways, as we sign off here, anything you wanna plug, Carita?
Sure. Make sure you follow Double Take Sports at DBL Take Sports on all platforms. Also, the website is dbltakesports.com. You can also follow me on all social media platforms at Carita C. Parks. And if you want some merch, go to the website. Make sure you pick up some merch. We got all kinds of things.
There you go. I like that. All right, y'all. This has been the Chocolate City Hoops podcast. It is a part of the Department of Hoops Network, if you don't know that. So make sure to like and subscribe to both channels, and we'll see you next time. Peace.